Hello, this is our introduction to Jack London's To Build a Fire for Paradigms English 12. And I just wanted to give you some, I guess, backstory for the author, for the time frame this was written in, what the setting is, just some things that I think will help you in your reading of Jack London's short story. So, essential questions are going to be what do I need to know about the Yukon Territory before reading? That's the setting of the story. Who is Jack London, the author? How does his biography help us understand his writing? We've always known that finding out the biography of an author matters, right? Because they tend to write about things that matter to them. What is the story to build a fire about? What is naturalism in terms of literature? Naturalism is a style of writing, an era, if you will, of literature. You may have remembered studying Romanticism and modernism and things like that in your other literature courses. This story falls under the heading of naturalism. How does setting play a part in this story? Very big part in this story. What are traits of man versus nature? Because we are in this conflict in literature unit. And what are some themes in the story? And then what features should we be looking for as we're reading the story? So I'm not asking you to complete this at this point, but I'm just showing it to you as sort of a preview for something I will be asking you down the road. Might have been a while since you did a KWL chart. What I know, what I want to know, what I learned. And so the what I know part, I want you to know that the Yukon Territory is known for its harsh, cold climate and rugged terrain. And since the setting of To Build a Fire is in the Yukon Territory, I know it will play a crucial role in the story's plot and themes. So that's what you're going to know before you start reading. And then I'm just kind of like putting myself in your shoes, and you're asking these questions for what I want to know: how the setting of the Yukon impacts the characters and their story, and how they react to things in the story, and then what specific details about the setting are important for understanding the essential parts of the story. And then you're going to be able to answer those questions at some point down the road. All right, so Jack London, the author, you did watch a biography of him in his early years. And I just wanted to kind of follow up with, I think I got this off of Britannica.com or Britannica.org. And it says that Jack London educated himself at public libraries, and he was heavily influenced by the writings of Charles Darwin. That actually does matter in in the story that we're going to read, and all of Jack London's writings. He also studied Karl Marx. Jack London was definitely a socialist most of his life, if not all of his life. He also studied the philosophies of Friedrich Nietzsche. And I believe we talked about Friedrich Nietzsche in the Flannery O'Connor story too. So she also studied Nietzsche. And then at 19 years old, I thought this was interesting that he crammed a 4-year high school course into 1 year and went on to go to Berkeley, which is a prestigious university in California. But then he quit school to seek a fortune in the Klondike Gold Rush. And I will get you a set of these slides so that you can click on these live links and find out more about Darwin, Marx, Nietzsche, the Klondike Gold Rush. All of those things are important in understanding the story. So he had previously published things in magazines and had a huge audience. And when he went back to school, he was still poor. He was unable to find work. And he decided instead to become a writer for a living. And the stories of his Alaskan adventures, ding, 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 the Yukon, began to win acceptance for their fresh subject matter and viral force, and eventually made him the highest paid American writer. So, what is this story about? It is a short story, and it was originally published in 1908. It matters that the time frame that it was written in, and it was later reprinted. And what else? So, this story is set in the Klondike in wintertime. It concerns a man who ignores the warnings and attempts to he ignores warnings from others about traveling in these extreme temperatures, and he attempts to travel a great distance in the extreme cold. We're going to see this idea of pride and ego showing up a lot in this story, so keep that in mind. And even though his dog kind of seems to push back against him, like the dog's instincts are telling him, this is not a good idea. The dog still follows the man, right? It's man's best friend. The man stubbornly continues to believe in his own infallibility. His doom is sealed when, after getting his feet wet, he is unable to build the crucial fire that might save his life. London's stark, unadorned prose is a powerful vehicle for his grim message. Yes, I'm going to give you that warning that it is a grim message indeed. I also made this link, what do I want to say, clickable, and made it a live link for you so that if you don't know what infallible means or infallibility, make sure you look at that. If you don't make mistakes and you're never wrong, you can claim infallibility, meaning you're infallible. You never make any mistakes. All right, what is naturalism? Naturalism is an era of writing, and it's also a type of literature. It attempts to apply scientific principles to its study of human beings and human nature. Many naturalist writers were heavily influenced by the writing of Charles Darwin. Naturalism themes, one of them is the brute within, and so I'm going to go to that slide quick just to briefly explain what that means. So the brute within typically refers to that primal, that instinctual, that animalistic tendency that exists within all of us. And this idea that inside of us, we do have some uncivilized nature, that we have aggressive natures. We have raw animalistic natures in all of us. And that can emerge in certain situations. So this brute within is used to describe moments when people act in a base manner or using their animal instincts, and they aren't, they're kind of overriding their rationality or their rational thought or societal norms. It implies a contrast between civilized behavior and the more primitive instincts that can still influence human actions. So it's kind of like if we're under duress, which is what's going to happen to our character in this story, our more animalistic or instinctual natures come through. Another theme in naturalism is this indifference of nature, where nature doesn't care about you. Nature is nature. Don't underestimate it. Don't try to fool it. It doesn't care about you. It also deals with the forces of heredity versus sometimes and environment. So who a person is and how a person is raised. And then this indifferent and deterministic universe, which lacks free will or agency. And I have a little blurb about that just to make it more understandable. So what does it mean to be indifferent and have a deterministic universe that lacks free will or agency? And what I've written here is a rejection of the Romanticism era that precedes it. Naturalism is a worldview in which the universe operates according to fixed laws, scientific laws, natural laws. Events unfold in a predetermined manner, and individuals lack the ability to exercise true free will or agency. That flies in the face of Romanticism. Romanticism is all about the individual. An individual can do anything, can be anything. We have free will. This flies in the face of that, saying, nope, it's this predetermined natural order of things. And this has significant implications for how one understands concepts such as morality, responsibility, and the nature of human existence. If you want to look more into that, feel free to maybe do a Google search on what naturalism is. I find it fascinating. I don't know. And then here's this chart again. You are seeing a pattern, I think, with these charts that I've put together for the various different conflicts in literature. Man versus nature involves a protagonist battle against formidable and unpredictable forces of nature. An overview here, the man versus nature conflicts often contain messages of how humans have the remarkable ability to adapt, persevere, and find meaning in the vast world that dwarfs us all. We are just a speck, right, in the universe. These types of conflicts may put forth messages about resilience, adaptability, respect for the natural world, and the insignificance of man. Again, there's that, like, we are but a speck in the eye of the universe. Insignificance of man when pitted against the awe of nature. Many times the character underestimates Mother Nature at the beginning of the story and is woefully unprepared. Oh, ding, ding, ding. That is going to be our character indeed in To Build a Fire. So, what I want you to be on the lookout for while you're reading this story, I want you to be looking for these examples of man versus nature conflict in the story. I want you to be thinking about how the characters, the conflict, and the setting work to propel the plot forward. Think about imagery. Imagery is just like, what are you seeing as you're reading? Descriptions and things of nature, of the dog, of the man. I might be looking for any kinds of symbolism. I'm going to give you one clue. I want you to be thinking of fire as one of the symbols in the story. And then I want you to be looking for those unknown ideas and terms and looking those up if you don't know, right? That just makes us smarter people. And I want you to be looking for any irony or ironies. And I want you to be thinking of yourself as a journalist when you're writing this or reading this. Last time in Sunny's Blues, I asked you to be a detective, similar, right? But I want you to be thinking of those W's that a journalist thinks about. As you're reading the story, I want you to be thinking about what's the who, what's the what, what's the when, what's the where, what's the how, what's the why of this story. I want you to be able to answer all of those things. That just shows me comprehension as well. And that you're able to kind of get to the deeper meanings in stories. All right, so man versus nature is that finding meaning in the vast world that dwarfs us all. It's finding the resilience in man, his adaptability, respect for the natural world. I just noticed I spelled insignificance wrong. Insignificance of man when pitted against the awe of nature. Insignificance. Humans underestimating Mother Nature, humans being woefully unprepared when facing Mother Nature. Yes, you will see that in this story. So the central theme in To Build a Fire is this idea that man lives this solitary existence and he is subject to this relentless force of nature. But at the same time, I want you to see if you can find this undercurrent of man, and when I say man, I mean man as a whole, like human beings, finding meaning in our existence. So I want you to be kind of thinking, what is this guy grappling with? Yes, he's grappling with these forces of nature, but also is he grappling with finding meaning in his existing? I want you to be looking for this idea that the severe cold is forcing him to light a fire to prevent his feet from freezing due to the temperatures dropping below freezing point. And if you can, as much as you can, put yourself in the shoes of the character, right? That also helps you develop better reading skills, and it strengthens your reading comprehension. And then Jack London, the author, emphasizes the existential theme throughout the setting, imagery, and the use of irony in the story. I already told you on the last slide to be looking for those things. Imagery is really important because it sets the mood in this story and other stories, and it conveys this cold, this gloom, this harshness, this man versus nature environment. And then irony is used in the story that shows us this helplessness of this guy. He thinks he's all-knowing. He thinks he can outsmart nature. And I want you to be thinking about the indifference that he shows toward nature, and then what nature imposes back on him, which is the indifference toward what human beings struggle with. I want you to see that it's reinforcing this existential theme of man being solitary, being a speck in the universe, and the universe is very uncaring. The universe does not care about you. So the characters not having names is intentional on the author's part. It's just another way of pointing out to us, nature doesn't care about us. Nature doesn't care if these people have names. Nature is brutal. Nature is a brute. So we don't have names for the characters. I also want you to be kind of thinking about the fact that the author writes as an impartial observer with a pessimistic worldview. If we think about that slide where I talked about, of course, now I'm not going to be able to find it. Oh, well, if I think of it, it just reminded me of something I had on another slide where this impartial observer, this scientific fact based impartial view. I think it was when I was talking about naturalism, now that I think about it. Yes, it's the type of literature that attempts to apply scientific principles to the study of human beings. So it's based in science. It's not emotional, whereas romanticism was highly emotional. All right. So if you think this story seems pessimistic and the omniscient narrator is pessimistic, yes, that's very intentional. In the story, the message is nature doesn't care about humans. You're going to hear me say that a bunch. Nature doesn't care about humans. Nature doesn't care about humans. You will encounter plot twists when reading naturalism, and this story is no exception. In the story, there's going to be intense gut punches, and what I mean by that is you're going to go, "Ooh, ooh! I wish that hadn't happened. I wish that hadn't happened to this person." But it's intentional again on the writer's part, and it shows the futility of the character's struggle. Nature doesn't care about you. You can fight against us all you want. You are woefully unprepared. Too bad. And since the man fails to adapt, he falls prey to the unforgiving landscapes. Don't want to give any spoilers, but when you're going to read stories that are in the naturalist vein, you can just expect that there's going to be some doom and gloom and some grim endings. And yes, grim ending is right. All right, so those are things that I want you to be on the lookout for. And if I get everything done tonight, I wanted to actually find a clip for you of the some Yukon Territory clip, because I think it's really important to understand, first of all, when this was, at the turn of the century in the 19th century. Sorry, not the 19th century, the 1900s, the 20th century. And then I also want you to know, those brutal that brutal terrain still exists. It's still there in the Yukon Territory, right? It's still frigid. And if anyone has ever watched Ice Road Truckers, you kind of know what those guys are dealing with, and women those Ice Road Truckers deal with. So I will look for just so, a video so that we can kind of get a sense of what it's like to be in the Yukon Territory and what this character is dealing with. All right. Have fun. Enjoy the story. It is a classic. It is one that if you've not read it before, you definitely need to read in your lifetime. And if you have read it before, it's always something to revisit. And I hope you enjoy it.